Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Thank you for joining me, Probie, and my present again. As always, today we have Artemis
Hello, how you doing?
and Atiri.
Hey, how's it going?
They're both here to join us to about today's topic, which is work and the stresses of work and work life. So, how you guys doing today?
I'm awake, alive, ready to get going. I think we could talk about this one all day long.
I'm doing pretty good myself. Had a relatively relaxing day for my weekend, so I'm ready to get going. So let's hit it.
It's always good. I've been up for about an hour, so obviously I'm doing pretty well. My day's just started
Nice and rested, ready to go, huh?
after the long week, and Fridays are supposed to be this nice, like, easy day typically in most places, and then you have one thing that happens to where someone just wants to press your buttons just enough that you're like, all right, don't let it carry over to the weekend, otherwise I might explode.
Oh yeah, I even had yesterday off work. We had a non-production day, so I had an extra day to relax. But I think Thursday definitely made up for it because it was definitely not a good day.
It happens so frequently that, like, I, I just don't understand what goes through people's minds when they sit there and they want to talk to you like, oh, we're buddy buddy, and then out of nowhere it just boom, you're not doing this right, and you're not doing this right, and you're like, well, what can I do better? Nothing. They can't give you answers, and that's, I guess, one of my biggest problems that I've experienced. I've worked a ton of different jobs in my life, anywhere from working at Walmart all the way to working in the military and personal finances. And it seems like it's almost the same everywhere. Obviously, the military is a little bit different because that whole structure is set up in a different way that you couldn't get away in like a civilian life with, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I started out in fast food in high school and then transitioned into factory work, and I've pretty much worked in or contracted to a factory ever since. And it it's the same thing. What I always equate it to is the workplaces anymore are nothing like it's high school all over again. You've got, the teacher, which is your boss. You've got, the jocks, which are, the smart little brown nosed kids that are always kissing the boss's ass and treating everybody else terribly. And then, there's everybody else. You have the same cliques. You can relate them in the same manner.
I can completely agree. I've also started in the retail industry when I first started work, and progressing obviously into software development, and it has not changed at all at any scope from start to finish. And I can agree, it definitely is like a high school situation, 100%. And like what Probie was saying, I think the big thing too is people are like to complain about everything, but they don't want to offer a solution because that means they have to take accountability for what they're complaining about. I think that's the big point.
There's zero constructive criticism. Like, yeah, we all make mistakes, and most of us understand that. But when you go, okay, I know I screwed this up. How can I avoid doing it again? Or what exactly caused it? And you get nothing. It's like, well, it's your problem. You fix it. And that doesn't work at work.
Yeah.
Well, it's just not useful.
So on the flip side of that, though, you have people who super micromanage as well, right? It's like my one of my biggest things is you hired me to do a job. I have shown you that I can do said job, but yet you are getting into my accounts. You're constantly asking me like, what's going on with this? And it's like, I get that. That's your job, right? Like typically in those situations, and I think this is where people forget at times. So on the benefit of the work side, the business side, there's always someone that's asking someone else what's going on, right? And I fully understand that, but at some point you can't micromanage people. When you do that, you take people who feel competent in the job and come in every day and they say, "Look, I'm here to work. I'm for these 8 hours or whatever, some longer, some shorter depending." You say, I'm here to do a job. You've trained me how to do said job. I've shown you I can do the job. Let me do it. I don't need to answer something from you for every 15 minutes.
Right. I mean, there's a balance that they need to maintain. You can manage somebody without micromanaging them. And when you have to allow that person the freedom to do their job, because if you don't give them at least that much freedom, then it runs into the micromanaging portion where it becomes overbearing on that person. And speaking as somebody with mental health issues, you just can't do that to some of us.
Well, I think a lot of the issue too there is, I think the definition between what a boss is and a leader nowadays is really skewed for people, and a lot of people that still have the mentality of I should be a boss, so they want to justify their existence in that position. And since bosses just demand things of you and not actually show you by example, they feel they have to crawl down your neck all the time or throat to go, hey, are you doing this? Because I'm justifying my position now by bothering you.
So I personally am in that type of situation to where with my current job, I was actually in my same training class, or in my class that we did for training. My boss was sitting next to me in the same class, right? And there's nothing wrong with being on the same level as your boss. The problem that I have is there are times where like we were in the same class and I show him how to do things now. There are things that I learned a little bit quicker. And again, that's not a problem. I don't mind that, right? And a leader in that sense, where you're talking about, you have these managers and you have leaders. A leader would be happy for constructive criticism or anything like that. And anyone who has known me knows that, like, when it comes to teaching people things, I absolutely love it. I love to see everyone succeed, because if I can help my boss succeed, that means it's going to look good on me, right? The problem that I have is when you go to show someone, like, hey, this is how you do something, and then 5 minutes later they talk to you like they're the expert on there. It's like, come on, man. I just showed you how to do this. I understand your title and I respect that you're my boss, but like, don't talk down to me when you depend on me.
And that's one of the things that kill me. I know, because I've worked in a factory setting for so long, there's even more bosses, because you have your immediate supervisor, and then he's got like a group leader sort, and then you've got assistant managers, managers, and it goes on up. And those are all in-house in a factory. You see them every day. Whereas retail, you probably only have like one boss sitting there, and then the district guys like out there. And I feel, having experience in both of those, it's compounded in a factory setting where the top guy rolls it down to the assistant manager drops it down to the guy running the group runs it down to the immediate supervisor, and then the employees are left feeling like the machines that they're operating, and they're treated the same. And whoo, it's a rabbit hole.
That's people being treated like numbers, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of hiring people as individuals, people are being treated as numbers. And it's always, you feel like you're replaceable, which, yes, everyone is replaceable to an extent. But when you start building that culture of everyone's replaceable, you start getting people who come in and say, well, I guess I'm just going to work here till I'm replaced. And you slowly degrade the quality of work that you're getting from the people you hired to do that work.
And it's an absolute, like, double standard there too, because they want to say, oh, you're replaceable, we can have somebody in your job by the end of the day. Like, okay, then why are you trying to push me into working an additional day on Saturday, or telling me that I need to come in on my day off on Sunday? And it's like, you're only irreplaceable when it benefits them, but you're replaceable when it doesn't benefit them. And it literally just it beats the workforce down.
Absolutely. The whole thing is they don't want to tell you that it's like, oh, well, actually, for me to find someone else, yeah, I may be able to find someone today, but even if I could immediately employ someone, I now have to wait, let's say, 3 months on average to get someone up to speed to do the exact same level, give or take, of what you currently are doing, if they're just as effective as you are, right? Because most people aren't trained for about 3 months. That's why most jobs give you a 3-month like probationary period to get through that. So,
absolutely. And I think that's part of the problem with like where we're at in society now, right? Is instead of just saying, like, they're doing this merry-go-round. You can get on the ride, You go around a few times, you learn what you need to do, you start to expect things, and then they say, all right, your turn's done, get off, right? And you can be a hard worker, you can put in the extra time, extra benefits, all that stuff. Like, you give it everything that you have. And I'm not saying that I'm one for someone that be like, all right, we need to pat everyone on the back. Everyone needs to be appreciated for every little thing that they do. But people like being appreciated, and they like feeling like they're appreciated. And that's the biggest part, because now it's, well, I know that you stayed late 3 times this week, but you asked to go early today, and I'm going to give you hell about it. Or you need a day off, and I'm going to question you about why you need a day off, even though we give you this time and tell you, oh, you're free to use it whenever and however you want. But when you do use it, it's you're made to feel bad about taking time off. And I think that's the different in cultures from, we talked to some of our friends here in our Ascended Gaming Discord, and they're from other countries, and they're like, no, when we ask for a time off, they just say, hey, have a great time. We'll see you when you get back. We give you this time to spend it.
Or when they question you about what's a sick day.
Yeah. Well, are you actually sick? Like, yeah, I don't feel good today, so, I would prefer not to come in and get everyone else sick. I would like to take the time that you told me that I can spend. Well, I don't know. If you could just come in for like a half day, that pisses me off so much. It's like, if I feel sick, why would you want me to come in on a half day? What good does that do?
Yeah, why come in at all? I mean, it's you hear all of these other countries, and they're so baffled by some of the things that we have to put up with in our workforce on a day-to-day basis. And you sit there and you start to wonder, like, what would happen if we had some of their systems in place? And one of the big arguments against some of those is, oh, they'd be abused. Well, every system you put in place is going to be abused at some point or another, but at what point does it become overbearing? So let's take the sick days, for example. We have friends in Sweden who can actually call into work and say, hey, I have a massive migraine. I can't work like this. And they'll be like, okay, see you when it's done. And they can take up to, I believe one of our friends said, up to 14 days without even having a doctor's note. And if that happened here, absolutely people would abuse the crap out of it for, the first chunk that it's there, because we haven't had that system in place. But once it's part of the norm and people stop, that would go away over time. Yeah, you're going to have 1 or 2 people who do it every now and then to go see a concert or something, right? Crazy. But at what point does it become too much?
Yeah, it'll become the same thing like it is now, right? You'll end up, once people get adjust and they're used to a system, you'll get the people that are just going to milk it either way. Like, we still have people that are like that. Like, yeah, right now, most jobs are, if you are going to be gone at least 2 days, it's usually okay. Or the third day is like, oh, we require a doctor's note, or there is, you have to come in. Where a lot of people I have seen in the past, especially, that will come and go, oh, well, I'm sick, I'm not feeling good, and they'll take their 2 days, they'll come back, like they're all fine and dandy, because they weren't probably sick, and then, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road, they'll do it again, right? And they'll just rinse and repeat this structure whenever they're able to.
See, we don't even get those 2 days.
I worked from home for a little bit, and when I worked in banking, and I worked from home, and my job could completely be done remote. It was pretty much all data entry. It was very easy, right? And I always had my work done. Always. At the beginning of the month, they'd give me a list. They say, these are the accounts that we need claims filed on. I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. I sat here, I watched Netflix, did whatever, and did my work on one screen, watched TV on the other. I always had my work done every month. Like, I loved it. I woke up, did my job, people left me alone. There was no big deal about it. And this is when COVID first started. We had moved out of the office and moved to remote. Well, about 1.5 years goes by, and the company wants to get people back in the office, but they can't justify doing so when certain departments could work from home indefinitely and there would be no problem. So they started to put out logs of, we want literally, you couldn't miss more than 5 minutes being logged in your production log, otherwise you got in trouble for it. And it's like, I saw a thing that said your hardest workers will work for about 48 minutes and then take 15 minutes to recuperate, and those are the most Like throughout this whole study, it was over a 2-year period. They said those are your most productive employees, the ones that will work the hardest and give you the most value for what you pay them. And that's not what the system wants, though. The system wants you to literally for 8 hours be doing nothing, thinking nothing, saying nothing outside of what your job is. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about, oh, I don't want to go to work, but what other task in life can you do for 8 hours where you only do that task outside of like breathing, right?
Oh, absolutely nothing. And it's even more compounded if you look at it. I don't know if you've had, I don't think you've had factory experience. Have you, Probie?
No, I have not.
Okay, so in a factory setting, especially in the automotive industry, which I'm in, you have a certain amount of time to perform your process, and then the process is supposed to move and you work on the next part. So you don't have any you time at all during that. So if when when you do your job and you get it done in time, on time, every time, there's absolutely no benefit to that for you personally. When you have another employee who will do the same job, but they're constantly going over that cycle period, which is losing the company money. Everybody has to stay later, and they're both treated the same. So there's no individual. That's where we tie back into the whole people feeling like numbers thing, is because I'm doing a better job. I'm working harder. I'm making sure my stuff is done correctly. This other guy isn't, and there's no repercussion to it.
Yeah,
But there's no
exactly.
benefit for me either.
So, and that's something that I ran into in the military too. Is you'd be given a task like, hey, we need you guys to go do this, right? We want you to go fill sandbags, right? So you'd go do that, and they'd say, okay, we need 100 sandbags filled, and when you finish that, let us know. So you'd go, you'd start filling your sandbags, you're working your ass off, you get your 100 done, right? Well, the other guy who in the same time only did 30 is still going to be doing sandbags. And yeah, they're going to go, oh, you need to hurry up. Other people are finishing, blah, blah, blah. We need you to go do these other tasks. Well, you'd get in there, you'd finish up your 100. Next thing you know, you're helping this guy do his 100. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
and then when you finish, it's okay, you're going to go do this. And then when they finish, there were so many times that the late person would finish their task. There'd be nothing else for them to do. So then it's, all right, you guys are done. Go fuck off until we need you again. When you have a system like that, I understand things need to get done. And if there is no other work, some places will be like, okay, just kind of hang around till we have something else for you to do. But when you start punishing your harder workers, that's when they start to sit there and go, am I valued at this place? Does this place care about me and how much effort I put in? Or am I just putting in effort and never getting a raise, never getting recognized, never getting any benefits for it? And then that's when those people say, well, I guess I'm just going to switch jobs again until I find somewhere that values me as a person and what I bring to the table.
And that problem even gets more compounded when you're one of the harder workers, because back to my example, if the line stops for any amount of time, we're expected to restock parts, grab a broom, sweep, and this is time we could just take a second to rest. But your supervisor, your immediate group leader, or whatever, could be standing there talking to somebody else about their golf game, watching YouTube at their computer, or anything like that. They get the nice relaxing diet. But that guy is the one who comes out there and tells me, hey, you're not busy. You need to at least look busy until we get the line running again. Like, you're the one doing all of the work, making all of the company money, and he's sitting there wasting time on YouTube. Like, I don't understand how we've gotten to that point.
That comes back down to the bosses versus leaders, right? A leader will go out there and set an example, because whether people believe it or not, how you see your boss act starts to say, okay, this is how I'm going to act because this is what they're doing. And if your boss is sitting there and they fuck off for half the day, you're going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to do what I need to do and not put in any extra work because my boss isn't. And leaders get out there, and one of my favorite things about leaders is they always say, a leader won't ask you to do something that they're not willing to do. And how true that is in the workplace.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Like there should never be a point where if you're talking with your boss, where if you ask them to help you do something, they should, if you'd like to catch up, whatever that may be, they should be able to help you. And leaders would. They would step in and help you get caught up or show you how to do something if you don't know how, etc. Most bosses, I've realized in the past especially, will not actually know how to do the job that you're doing half the time. They're just put there to tell you what to do.
Yeah, that's so common. And then they give you the excuse of, well, I'm just here to manage you guys. Well, no, you're the line supervisor or you're my direct boss, right? Like, you should know how to do the job. And if you don't, you should be trying to learn how to do it. And I don't expect you to know everything, but you should be able to help get me an answer. And it's just like whenever I'm coaching people in bowling, right? If I am unsure about something, I don't tell them, well, I don't know, so you're just going to have to figure it out. I say, I don't know, but let me get the answer for you, or I will get back to you with an answer. Because that's how you teach people, and then you're learning on top of it, right? So you're becoming a more valued person in whatever you're doing, because now you're taking something that you didn't know, and instead of just blowing it off and being like, well, I've never had to deal with it, so it doesn't matter, and I don't care. You're now going, let me get that answer for you, and we can both learn.
Right. If I can't give you the answer, then we'll figure it out together. It becomes a team activity instead of just, I don't know, figure it out on your own. And that's so common in today's workforce, especially in America where we live, because you can sit there and teach somebody something and learn from even a new pair of eyes if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I think is, when it comes down to it, you'll have someone say, so when I worked in sales, I was a manager and I had to hire people. And I didn't look for like this cookie cutter, this is someone that I want because they view things the exact same way as I did. I liked when people challenged me on things, because what that did was that took my thinking and said, okay, you know what? This is how they see it. Is there any value that I'm missing out of how they're thinking about doing something? Is their way a better, more efficient way, or is their way wrong and I need to teach them or show them or explain to them why it's wrong? But I liked when people challenged me as a manager, as long as it was respectfully. That's the difference. And knowing when to, as a worker in that situation, knowing when to shut up can also benefit you, because if you have a boss that's not open-minded, you're never going to get anywhere, and then you start to become the problem and they say, all right, how do I get rid of this person? It's one of those things that you have to sell yourself, and you have to also understand the people around you and what type of person they are. Are they someone that's willing to learn, or are they someone that's also just showing up? They got a manager job and they're like, well, I'm just going to kind of sit back and wait and relax until there's a problem, and then I'm going to do my job? Or are they going to be on top of it and try and prevent the problem from happening?
See, that makes me think of another issue, is that with a lot of jobs right now, you have the people who are less than ideal for the position they're in, even just as regular employees, who will get promoted into those higher spots just so they can have an easier day. Because one of the big problems that I've noticed in every factory job I've worked in, and even in most retail jobs I worked in, is that people will get those positions because they think there's less work that they have to do, and there's no policing done of management. And I think that's one thing that we're really lacking, is that there's nobody there to tell the manager that they need to do their job properly.
Yeah, which is also kind of unfortunate, because the managers and bosses, leaders are usually the ones that will actually help you progress and become better as a whole. But with the other two, it's kind of hard, because they're supposed to be the individual that watches your progress and helps you become better, right? And in doing so, that would be how you would, if you're trying to like sell yourself and move up the chain, let's say, like you're hoping that when your boss moves up, or whatever reason gets fired or so on, you would want to take that spot, or if you want to move up. And if that boss or manager never actually showed you that you were actually doing your job appropriately, and they was just kind of swept under the rug per se, you'll never have a good shot at moving up because no one above them knows who the hell you are half the time. So you're just sitting in the dark, where most leaders will be like, well, this person's a really good employee and this is what they excel at, and they need improvements here, but otherwise they would be a good candidate for the future because they understand that eventually they're going to move up to a higher position and they're going to need someone to take that spot.
See, so that's something that I've run into where I've shown my boss how to do something, and then not 10 minutes later, he'll be on a call with his bosses and he'll be like, oh, well, I did this. And it's like, you didn't do that. Like, motherfucker, you're not the one you didn't know how to do this 10 minutes ago. I showed you how to do it. And again, I'm not asking for you to be like, oh, Probie did this and Probie did this, and he showed me how to do this, but like some recognition, because at the end of the day, it's like you said, I need my boss to know what I do, and I need my boss's bosses to know that I'm valued in the company.
They at least know you exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a credit where credit's due, and there's not enough of that because people want to take credit for themselves, and that's another reason the lazier people, will attempt to get those promotions, is because they think, well, if I get that position, then I'm the one doing everything, I guess, vicariously through everybody else, so I don't actually have to do the work, but I get the credit for it.
Yeah, I don't have to be a hard worker. My workers are hard workers for me.
Exactly.
Like, it's just one of those, and again, I have a tendency of opening my mouth probably a little too much at work and voicing my thoughts, but that's just kind of how I've always lived my life is, speak what's on my mind, and if it gets me in trouble, I'll deal with that, but at the end of the day, when I go to sleep at night, I can say, no, I feel like I did the right thing, and I do not let people take credit for things that they didn't do that I did. I can't stand that. When I was a manager, I didn't do that. People would say, oh, your store's doing great. And I'd say, well, actually, these guys came in and, these two people have been here every day picking up shifts when people call out, or these guys are the ones that need a raise, not me. I'm not the one that I couldn't do it without them.
Oh, exactly. And there's just not enough of that. If you look at the credit that is not given, like how many employees have you seen and worked next to that go above and beyond and come in like that ever actually get credit for it? It's just, it doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. And I think part of the reason of that is coming down to like a mental aspect of, a lot of the times the people who are working the hardest are the people who don't feel appreciative, and they come in, they're the ones that are like stressing out over, am I gonna have a job? And they have no reason to stress out over it because they are the hardworking ones, but they come in and they work their ass off because they're like, if I don't do this, one day they're gonna be like, oh, you're not working very hard, so we're gonna have to write you up or talk to you about why you're not working hard. So those people come in for a year, 2 years, they work their ass off and they burn themselves out. And then there's nothing to show for it other than, them being depressed or upset or stressed or whatever. And I think burning people out I think it's happening a lot.
I definitely can relate to that. I'm pretty burnt out with the way things are going at work, and it's something we all have to deal with a lot of times, but normally if there are programs in place to help people with that, it wouldn't be such an issue. I don't understand why we haven't gotten to that point yet.
So yeah, I think this is going to sound a little bad, but in reality, like, it's something I've learned through working with multiple companies because of how the industry works and how they expect you to function as an individual in the work society. You have to learn to balance and play mediator to the point where, with you, like yourself on a work level, and that's what I mean by that is you cannot give 100% of your abilities at a job. Because, and hear me out on this, the reason you can't is once you do and you can show your true productivity level, your boss will always, and I mean always, expect you to perform at that level, which is what causes you to burn out. You cannot give them that, which is unfortunate. I wish you could, because that would allow your employer to do better, which makes you do better, gives higher chance for raises and promotions, which is what you want in, overall point of why you work a job. But if you're expected to work at 100% of your capacity and get nothing for it, you will burn out easily and will end up quitting your job. You'll get frustrated, you'll snap, whatever, and you'll be done. So you have to go, I'm going to give you 80%. That's all you get. And if you have to catch up, you will do the 100%. But otherwise, 80% is all you're giving them most of the time.
Yeah, because you're setting the bar, right? You're showing them what they should expect from you. And if you come in, guns blazing 100%, they say, okay, this is where the bar's set. And then as soon as you fall below that, it's a question of, are you okay? But they don't actually care if you're okay. It's are you okay? Why are you not giving me this 100% that you've shown me that you're capable of doing?
Well, yeah, because now they're looking at like, oh yeah, well, what happened? Your productivity was amazing. Now you're not making my results look good. So why?
That's not only a question of work ethic. That's also a question of morale. I mean, that's one thing in my own personal job I've seen that people just don't take into account enough, especially in management positions, is the morale of the workforce. And when you've got leaders, not bosses, you've got leaders out there on the floor actually doing things that they're supposed to do and allowing you to do 100% one day and 60% on a bad day or whatever, your morale is so much better. And when the morale of the workforce is better, the whole company thrives. And when your morale goes down and productivity goes down, it's like you get hit harder with all of the stuff that you don't need when your morale is down.
I mean, think about it. How much time do you, outside of work, right? How much time do you sit there and you stress about work when you're not at your workplace?
Too much.
I would say at least it normally takes me an hour and a half or so to wind down from the day, and even longer if I've had a bad day.
So if you have a wife and you have kids, right, and you come home and say you're there for 9 hours, right, because you have your hour lunch or whatever. So you've just spent 9 hours of your day at work. You come home and you start stressing about work. And then your family knows, okay, well, they need time to decompress. So there goes 10 and a half hours, sometimes 11, right? Well, you get home, then that leaves you what, 3-4 hours to just kind of be like, all right, I can spend some time with the family. And hopefully I'm not in too much of a bad mood that it affects them when I came home. And it does. And even when you try not to show it, they can still feel that. They can still feel that, well, dad came home from work today and all he wanted to do was take a nap or watch TV or whatever because he was stressing about work. Or on the weekends, you talk about work and you're complaining about, do you know what happened at work today? Or last Wednesday at work, this happened. It starts to control your life. And in a good work balance, like when you clock out, sure, you're going to think about your work because that's where we spend the majority of our lives. But in a good work balance, you're not stressing over it. You're saying, oh, well, I got this at work today, but it's not a big deal. We're going to get it done, whatever. Instead of, my boss said that like we're not getting enough done and I don't see where we're not getting enough done because I worked my ass off for the last 8 hours.
Oh yeah, and that's even more compounded with those of us who have, mental health issues. Is I know a lot of us tend to cope. We have our unhealthy manners of coping. Some of us might play video games for too long. Some of us might, do other things. And when your work stress is elevated above the norm, then your coping mechanisms end up getting elevated above the norm, and that leads you to another type of stress, and then it carries over into work, and then you're in this cycle that it's almost impossible to break out of.
Well, and it sucks too because the one commodity in life, you can never get back as your time. And when you already are using 80% of your lifespan on work and stress off of that, you don't want to add extra time to what you're already using all your time on. You have so little amount of time to spend actually enjoying the time you're getting to do stuff, right? So it just sucks, and you want to be able to break out of a cycle, but our current system doesn't really let you, because we don't have anything available other than, obviously, de-stressors.
And there's no systems in place in a vast majority of companies to help people get out of that cycle, because that would hurt their time.
It hurts their productivity and their numbers. They don't care.
I mean, so think of it this way, right? How many of you have older people in your life, grandparents or whatever, that are still working to this day?
My mother, at the age of 62, she was at a point where she had to still work at 60, and the only thing preventing her from still being in her factory job is that job has done too much damage to her hands. She can no longer work.
Which is unfortunate. That shouldn't be the situation at all.
One set of my grandparents, they still work, and they're about to enter their 80s. And one of them, she was so close to retirement for a major retailer, and they let her go. And it's like, now she works at McDonald's, and she, shows up every day. She works there. She has to deal with the stresses of, that's a whole different generation. And now she has to deal with those stresses of that type of management, working in a fast food restaurant where she should be enjoying her life by this time, right? Like, she can't just go out and do whatever she wants on her days off, because she doesn't have very many days off. She still has to work. My other grandpa still has to work. It's like, at what point do we look at society and we say, this shouldn't be life? Life shouldn't be you go to school from 5 to 18, 19, depending on your age. And then you go to college, or if that's the route you choose, you go to college for another 4 or 5, up to 10 years, depending on what you're doing. And then you work until you're 70. And the average lifespan is 76 for males and 78 for females. So you get 6 to 8 years on average to enjoy life. Like, what kind of society is that? What kind of life is that?
Well, at that point, though, with the type of jobs that we have, that the majority of us do on a day-to-day, you can't even enjoy those last few years because your body can't handle doing anything.
Right, you've destroyed yourself to that point. So now it's just sitting around doing nothing because you can't enjoy anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah. I saw a thing that said, we should be focusing more on enjoying life when we're able to, not when we're forced to. And I can't agree more that you break down your body to the point that when you're supposed to start enjoying life, you can't do it. You just physically can't. You can't go on vacations. You can't go see the world because your body can't handle it.
I mean, not only that, even if you look at the retirement age in the States, it's 62, I think, something like that.
Supposed to be.
Right. And I have people that I work with, and our factory is a very well-paying job for what it does. And there's people who have been there 30, 35 years in their 70s who still are like, oh, I can't afford to retire.
Right. No, don't get me wrong. People can say that it's their fault they didn't save up money, right? I can see that argument to an extent, but what hurts me more is the fact that, especially for the older generations, is they went their entire life being told that they're going to get a cutback when they retire so they can survive without having to work, right? The whole Social Security concept. And they rode on that. They relied on the fact that when they got to retirement age, at the time I think it was 55, when they were told that, oh, I'll get this money So everything I've worked for will help me succeed, so I don't have to worry about having a huge retirement fund. And then when they got there, they realizing that, oh, we don't have that anymore. Well, now what? So that they aren't getting as big of a payout anymore, and they had some retirement, but it only lasted them a couple of years, and then they're sitting there going, well, crap. Now I have to go back to work because otherwise I can't pay my bills. I can't feed myself. Like, I think that's really messed up.
And one of the things that blows my mind about the whole situation is we have so many studies that have been done that prove that employees who are treated better work better, employees who are treated better stay longer. Like, these are people who are treated well enough to where they could quit their job and go to another company that pays more with more experience, but they don't because they feel valued at that company. They're treated well enough that it's like, why would I go anywhere else? This company's treated me well. But those
Absolutely.
are so few that you, trying to get into one, it's like nobody's going to quit there. So
Yeah.
there's not a job opening for you.
That falls into that concept that people always tell you, if you work a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And people take that out of a weird context. When someone says that, that means, oh, well, if I work in software, because I love working with software, I'll always feel accomplished, never feel like I'm working. And that's not what it means. It means if you work in a location or for a company that values you as an individual and you enjoy the people you work with and the job you are doing, you will never feel like you've worked a day in your life because you are enjoying the day and the time you're spending bullshitting with your coworkers when you're a little bit of downtime to doing your work that you're enjoying working through and troubleshooting and problem solving, right? Like,
people like their minds to be stimulated. They don't like them to be overworked, but people want to be stimulated, right? If you have someone that's in a job that they don't feel challenged in, and I don't mean challenged as in like, oh, we need to add more workload because they're finishing all their work. I mean challenged as in like they feel like they're being accomplished when they complete their task. When people aren't in those roles, that's when they start being upset and start saying, okay, well, what's the other problems? Because their mind starts saying, well, this is too easy, so what else can I think about? Then they start thinking about, well, this could be done better, but no one wants to listen to me about how to do it better. And now I don't feel valued because no one even wants to entertain the idea that I may have something that could help. So then they start waiting and waiting and waiting for that time to come where someone says, hey, let me hear this idea that you're talking about. And when it doesn't come, they say, well, I guess I'll go somewhere else. Even though I really don't want to because I enjoy what I'm doing, I guess I'll go somewhere else because no one wants to hear me out. No one even wants to entertain the idea that I may have something valuable to add since I'm already working at a high quality, right?
You just feel like you don't exist.
Yeah. You're just a number.
Even when someone does want to listen to you, like, what's the incentive? Because somebody else is just going to take the credit for it anyway.
I mean, and then that comes down to, I'm going to use a gaming term here, and it's called min-maxing. It's when you do something at the most efficient way possible. But in the sense that I'm bringing it to is, that comes down to if you work with people, right? If you work in an industry that you work with people. For example, I have worked in personal finances and I've done banking and whatnot. You start getting to the point to where during training and orientation, they tell you, oh, we're here to do what's best for the person and the company. But when you start actually doing the job, what that comes down to is, how can we get the most out of this person without absolutely obliterating everything that they have? And just short from them signing their soul over, what can we take from them? And it's like, that's not how you create people that come back, right? It's the whole, when I worked in sales, everything was about generating new customers. Just keep bringing in new customers because they want to see us growing, versus saying, hey, we've had this person here with us for 15, 20 years. We should probably take care of them. They say, well, they're an existing customer. They're not getting us as much. They're not helping us fully grow. That's just reoccurring income. And it's like, sure, it's reoccurring income until it's not.
See, now I hate that now because I worked in sales for 3 years at a car dealership, right? And when I got into that industry, I knew already walking in the door, everyone goes, you're a slimy car salesman. No one likes you. It's a hard industry, especially in sales, because people already just want to beat you with a bat as soon as they see your face. But I hate the approach of we want a new customer. It's always a new customer. When I worked in that industry, yes, the first year of being there was just that, new customer, because I had no choice. I was new. I never worked there before. I don't know the area. I have to meet people. I have to make or build a rapport with my customer, and then so I can sell them something, right? That's a typical sales strategy. Now, after that year, I spent the next 2 years, yeah, I would help new customers, but most of my time was actually spent with my customers prior. Now, you would think in the car industry, people only buy a car on average every 4 years. True. However, if you can build a good enough customer standing, those customers will bring you your new customers. They will send their, like if it's a parent, they'll send their kids, so on. They'll send their relatives. You don't have to do any actual work after that point because everything is referral based. I literally could sit at my desk for the next 2 years and people came to me. I didn't have to go out of my way, hunt people down on the lot, and try to be that creepy guy that's stalking you while you're looking at a sticker, right? I always hated it, that was the preach they gave. You should be out there literally being a lot lizard and trying to grab people and hook them into buying something, and then once they bought, pretend they don't exist. Like, I hate that mentality.
Whenever I was a manager for sales, I had people who, after I left the sales industry and went into banking, I had people who still reached out to me for a year and a half afterwards saying, hey, where are you at? So I can come, like, what location are you at now that I can come see you because I know you're going to do me right. Like, you're going to get me what I'm wanting and not, hide anything, not do any sleazy tactics. And that's not valued, though. By the company that I worked for, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad company, but they also did push like, well, just do this and tell them this, and it's like, well, that's not what I'm doing. So I always took the approach of, if you were going to work for me, or if I was going to work with the customer, I was going to be completely open, but I was going to explain why this benefits you, like why I truly believe this benefits you, not oh, this is good for you just because I said so. This is good for you because based off of what you had told me, these are things that you need in your life for this reason. And those people always came back. It's like you said, they'd send their friends, their family, they'd say, don't talk to anyone else other than Probie.
Oh yeah, everyone values honesty.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what it comes down to. And it makes you as an individual feel good when that person comes back and says, I only want to work with this person and no one else, right? Even when they'll travel out of their way to come to where you went to, it makes you feel so good at your job. And it's not like, oh, productivity wise, I feel good about my job. It's that I feel good because other people aren't being screwed over and they're happy to talk with me. Like, you're building a friendship.
That provides that sense of accomplishment that you're looking for in the workplace. That's why I love that job, because when someone came in and they said, hey, you helped me out, and it's like, yeah, I remember you, like, no problem, like, what can I do for you? And they knew that, like, you were the person, you were their go-to person, and that made you feel valued.
Absolutely.
It's just one of those things that where now in the industry that I work in, it's personal finances, and it's you have people who they say, well, why aren't we doing the largest loan that we can for them? And it's like, because that's not what's good for them. Like, I want to make sure that they know that when they come in, I'm saying, hey, this is what I can do for you, and this is what I can get you, but I also know that this falls within your budget, and I'm not completely like screwing you over, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing something that is going to hurt you in the long run, and then I'm going to have to call you and be like, hey, why aren't you making payments? I'm doing something that says, hey, you have this problem that you're trying to take care of. I can help you take care of this problem, and then you still have the necessary funds and lifestyle that you're looking for.
Oh man, like with loans, it's just so annoying, right? Because the whole entire standard is 33%. right? So as long as you can afford 33%, it's okay. So I should give you the loan up to that 33%. And I hate that because just because I could afford to do 33% doesn't mean I don't have other things in my life that I enjoy. And
Yeah.
I would like to have my money available for other things, right? I don't want to be so going, well, I grabbed this car loan or house loan or mortgage or whatever, and it meets exactly 33% of my total take-home income. Well, not even that. It's not even take-home income. I'm pretty sure it's net base now.
Yep, it's all net base.
So reality, it's probably closer to around 40% of actually what you make of your take-home. So you're not getting your real money to use, and you're like, oh, well, now I'm stuck for 4 years, 15 years, whatever your loan term is for what you're getting, and you can't do anything because you just can't afford it. So now you have to get another job or whatever, and now once you do that, yeah, you have more money, fantastic, but now you don't have time.
Yeah, that
Yep.
completely ties into everything we've talked about up to this point and compounds all of the issues we talked about.
Yeah, I mean it's like you said, now they don't have money. It's like I'm up shit creek because of this exact reason, and I came to you for help, and now you've just tied me down for X amount of years into the exact same situation that I'm in.
Yeah, you just made it worse. Thanks.
Yeah. Like you're taking care of a short-term problem, but now I don't have money to save. I came to you to help me consolidate some stuff to open up some money, and instead you've just locked it down guaranteed that now I really am not going to have money for the next 3 years.
When I didn't necessarily need the size of a loan I got to begin with.
Yeah, but because there's metrics behind it for your company that say, well, that has to be this minimum average size loan and we need to do this many. And it's like, well, now that customer is going to go, well, I went in there for help and I guess I got short-term help, but in the long term, they didn't really do anything for me, so I wouldn't go there again. Well, now you don't have this reoccurring customer. Now you have a one and done. And how does that help you in the long run of a business?
I mean, like the best reference I think there is, it's like walking into a hospital with an open wound that obviously needs stitches. And the doctor looks at you and goes, here's a Band-Aid. I'll see you, later. That's not a solution. You just literally gave me nothing. You took my money, and then I have to come back again at some other point in time where I have to give you more money to now try to fix the actual problem. Like, I don't understand why companies take that approach.
I think one of the main issues with most of the stuff we've talked about in general is that there's not enough individuality in any portion of it. So if you look at the customer base, customer views that we've talked about, each customer needs to be taken individually. But just like the issues we talked about prior to that, the individual performance of the worker needs to be taken into account, and we don't have enough of that. Everybody is trying to generalize all customers into one bubble. The company is trying to generalize all of the employees into one bubble, and that just doesn't work on any aspect of anything we've talked about, I don't think.
It doesn't work as a whole because people are not generalized groups of people. Every single person is different, and we've moved away from any type of individuality to, well, this person is a young adult in their mid-20s, so they should be able to do this. And that's not the case. Everyone's path to that point is different. In the workplace or as a customer, everyone's different. And, people make mistakes. People have great lives. There are people who were handed the silver spoon all the way until a certain point in their life, and then it changed. And then people go, well, they had everything and they lost it. Why? Well, that's life. You don't know what's going to happen. You can control it to a certain point, but there's going to be times when things happen, right? You could live the perfect life and have no problems and have no debt and anything, pull out of your driveway and get hit. Next thing you know, your life is turned upside down because you have medical bills. If it does long-term damage, like, you lose mobility, you get injured real bad, like, well, all of a sudden you went from being this, I have no problems in life, to having problems, and you have to learn to deal with that as an individual. Well, to businesses, you're just another customer. We don't care what happened to you. I don't care what's going on in your life. You are telling me that you need something from me, so I'm going to take the absolute maximum out from you because someone said they want to see money numbers go higher, you know, instead of saying, like, having the customer go, no, you know, when I had a problem, I went in there, they took care of me, they really listened to my needs and my wants, they got me handled. I understand that they did what's good for them and they took care of me. So if I need something, I can go back to them and I don't feel anxious or like I'm going to get, you know, drug over the coals or anything.
Right. If I go in to buy a phone and you're just showing me the most expensive lot when I just told you my budget is half the price of every phone you just shown me, that's not helpful to me and I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to refer people there. But if you actually go, okay, this, you know, this is what you said your budget is. These are the phones we have available in there. And with what you need this phone for, if we go to the bottom end of this, you know, you're not even approaching your maximum budget. That's the company I'm going to refer my family to. That's the company I'm going to come back to for my next phone.
Yeah. And then who knows? In, you know, 2-3 years when that phone is paid off and you're ready to get a new one, when you go back, you could go, hey, look, my budget's a little higher. And then all of a sudden that company is getting more money from you because they did the right thing later. It's long-term investments, but no one wants to see any type of long-term investment in people's growth, their mental health, their stability. They don't want to see that. They want to see these short-term bursts. And then later on, when things happen where you have like the banking industry right now where they're starting to collapse, they go, oh, well, now it's a problem and you guys did bad. And they'll get scolded for it and a little slap on the wrist. And then here in a couple of years, it'll happen again because people will go, well, we need gains this quarter. We want them right now. We don't want to have to wait for this long-term growth of stability. We want you to show all the gains right now.
And that's one of the things that even ties back into employees. You don't even have to look at customers. If you're treating your employees the same way, like, okay, this is how much we need from you. You don't have to go above and beyond that. That just is going to make your employee want to go further and above and beyond.
Yep. It's a tough world just because we really didn't get into a whole lot of it, but like the mental health aspect of it is something that's not even considered for employees. Employees are expected to show up, be in their perfect absolute apex condition all the time, and as soon as there's a problem, it's, oh, well, what's wrong with so-and-so? And it's not a, hey, they might be having a bad day or there might be something going on outside of the work that's causing them to be like this, and I should find out and see what we can do to help them because we value them. It's a, well, you don't need to bring that here into the workplace.
Companies have completely forgotten that reasonable accommodation is a thing.
True. And don't forget, people, crap, I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
Well, I mean, I'll use a personal example of mine. I have IBS, and therefore, you know, there's some issues that come along with that. And working in a factory, that is going to affect my performance. But I have had a group leader that was like, hey, no big deal. You do what you got to do. And I wanted to work even harder for that man. And now I have a group leader who is a little less inclined, and I don't want to do anything for that guy.
Yep. And then that's what happens. And then it's like Terry said, you start to slowly lower that bar so that becomes what they see as your normal. And it's not that you're unwilling to put out more effort. You just don't see the value in putting out more effort, because when you do, on the one day of the week that you don't do that, it's a, why aren't you doing this? Because this isn't what we expect from you.
Well, you're going to have a performance review this week.
Yeah.
So I remembered now. So don't forget the also lovely caveat of most companies go 3 strikes you're out policy. So if you have 3 bad attitudes, no matter what the reason is, mental condition, having a bad day, whatever, you're gone. And they usually hold that for an entire year, which is really messed up, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you had a bad day 3 times. Guess what? You're fired. Get out of here. What?
Yeah, you're not allowed to have bad days.
Yeah, not around here. You're not.
What
we
do you
don't
mean
pay
your
you to have a
dog?
bad day.
What do you mean your dog died? That doesn't have anything to do with work. Why are you upset? Don't bring that here.
Right? You don't got time off.
But don't take the day off either.
Yeah, you don't got vacation time.
That's not in your grievance policy. We don't cover that.
Yeah, your dog that you've had for 10 years passed away. That's not our problem.
Yeah, I've worked for places where things like that. It's like, well, we don't give grievance here, so or animals don't get covered by grievance. So use vacation time if you want off. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with you? Like, aren't you a human being as well? I would hope you are. Like, damn.
Yep. It's one of those struggles, right?
Endless.
It's always endless. Well, I have enjoyed our time talking out here in the yard today. Anyone have any other final thoughts before we head back to our cells?
Don't make me go back to the cell. No, I mean, I really hope that someone hears this that will actually start making a change. The culture is at a point where, part of the reason that everybody's like, nobody wants to work anymore. It's like, yeah, we're tired of being exploited. Like, companies take some, reflect on some of this.
Yeah, not even exploited. Just getting beaten down by your employer.
I think COVID really showed a lot of companies that you can't treat people like crap and expect to be able to replace them immediately. Even now, there's still places around my area that still we're extremely short-staffed. Even the pizza place that I order from all the time, they have a thing on their website when you order from that location that says we have one driver, like expected delivery times are almost 3 times as long as normal, and it's been like that for the last year, and they're paying more plus tips than what I make at my job, and I make a good amount. I make enough to be comfortable and have my own house and all that, right? So it's like when you have places that are paying well and can't keep people, it says something about the culture.
Yep. Hopefully the reality check to corporate America will help, but we'll see.
Yeah, the
We
beatings will
definitely
continue
will.
until morale improves. No longer applies because we're just going to leave so you can't beat us anymore.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time. I look forward to speaking with you guys again. I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of their day, weekend, whatever it may be when you're listening to this. I want to thank everyone for listening to Probie's Prison. And if you want, in the link below, if you want to have more discussion with us, there will be a link for our Discord called Ascended Gaming. We are a gaming community, but we have room for everyone, whatever that may be. If you have anything else to say, please comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be more than happy to interact and see what your guys' thoughts on the subject are.
Love y'all. Stay safe.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.